Okay, guys, so I've got a Django project created here. There's a few things I wanted to kind of show. So one thing was going to be dealing with the Google Map API, and also kind of want to show how we could deal with files, or more specifically images. So I thought we could kind of go through that. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me at any point. All right, so just to show you guys what I have right now, it's still got one more page to go, but let's fix these errors together. All right, so I just have a simple page. This is for November Platoon. I have a students page, and of course my server is down. So let's get my server back up. I'm in my virtual environment, so I'm going to do Python manage.py run server. All right, server should be good. All right, there we go. So I have one student that I've created called Hello World. We can add more students through the admin page. So I have my admin page. I've registered my students model, so I could actually add more students if I wanted to. All right, so if you don't mind, let me take a volunteer, or I'll just pick a volunteer, I guess. Let's see what I have on my screen. I have Isaiah Bragg. So Isaiah, do you mind if I add you to my database?
That's awesome.
All right, so make sure I get your name right here. Is that correctly spelled?
Nope.
No.
ISAIAH.
IH, sorry. Like that, right?
You good? I think that's a typo. That's a not an H. There you go.
All right, sorry. All right, so okay, and A here, right?
Yep.
All right, thanks. Sorry, apologize about that.
Good.
Okay, so we have this is the admin panel. So again, this is not something I've coded up. I'm just going to save Isaiah. All right, so we have Isaiah Bragg added there. So I'm going to add some details here, and then we'll kind of see what we can do with this example. So I'm going to go back to my coding window, and let's look at my student model that I have right now. So my student model isn't all that exciting. I simply have a name field, which, you know, it is good that we have that, but we probably should add something more interesting. So I'm going to add a couple of new items here. So I'm going to add an image field, and that's something we wanted to do earlier. So let's do image. This is going to be an image field. So there are two ways to go about it, and we kind of touched upon this. You can store images or files inside your database, but reading Django documentation and also just general practice, you don't really want to store files directly in your database. It is possible. I did come up with a way, reading some examples, that you can actually store a file, like an image file in your database, and then parse it out and show it. And we could maybe go through that example. But the predominant way you want to deal with images is using this image field. So we're going to see how this actually works in Django, because images are often good visual items to present on web pages. So if you've not worked with the image field, something I would definitely want to make sure we go over. So this will have a verbose name. We'll say, let's call it icon. And we'll talk about what these values mean. But in this case, I'm going to say images. All right, so we're going to add an image field. And notice I got an error. So this was unintended, but it's good that Django kind of tells you. If you want to use image field, you have to install Pillow. Pillow is a library for Python that makes dealing with images much easier. So I'm going to actually install that. So let's do pip install Pillow. I think lowercase might work, maybe. Okay, so we got that installed. Didn't take too long. So we've got Pillow. We're using image field. All right, so notice we installed Pillow, and now we could use image field. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, just a lot of stuff you got to memorize. In this case, Django will kind of know what you need to install. But okay, so I'm using image field here. I'm also going to add something else just to get more details on our students. I'm going to add favorite color. And this is where I just want to use a new example. So we have a retro up here. Where do I want to go here? Perfect. So again, this is just using, I guess, third-party libraries. There's something called color field, which I've never used before. So hopefully it'll be pretty straightforward. But here, it just I simply got to do pip install Django color field. So I'm going to copy that to my clipboard and run that in my terminal. So paste this. Hopefully that installs. All right, so you can see that installed pretty quickly. And then let's kind of just scan this quickly to see how we can use it. So we run pip install Django color field. Then if we want to actually use color field, we need to add it to our installed apps. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, settings, installed apps. This is something we do quite often with our own apps, but in this case, we're using a third-party app. So I have November as our main app here, but I'm going to add, that's not what I want to add. I'm going to add color fields. All right, so that's been added. And then let's see if this works. Again, I might abandon this if this leads me to errors, but hopefully it's pretty straightforward. Favorite color, that's where I left off. Let's go back to my models. Favorite color, this is going to be color field. So I need to import my color field. Examples, so color fields.fields. Again, pretty good documentation for this third-party API. So color field, and I could actually use this color field. All right, so I think it doesn't take in any values by default. I can have format, default. All right, this looks fine to me. So hopefully we can incorporate a favorite color here and kind of use this cool color picker tool that I'm sure many of you have used. All right, so for color field, we're going to have an image that we're going to associate with each student. And then let's just quickly do a location as a char field. And this would be max length. Make that 128 just in case. Okay, so I have name, favorite color, image, and location. As always, since I've made a change to my model, I'm going to have to run some migrations. So let's make sure we don't forget that. So I'm going to do Python. I might actually delete my existing migrations, see if that makes a difference. All right, so these will be optional. We'll see what happens here. So manage.py make migrations. Char field is not defined because that's off of models. Okay, cool. So it seemed like this worked. I created my model for student. Obviously, once I've made migrations, I typically need to pass them to my database. So I'm going to do manage.py migrate. Okay, cool. No migrations apply. We'll see what that actually means. Okay. Oh, I think I know what the issue is. So let me quickly delete my database. Drop db x db. Okay, cool. So I think it should be good now. Let's actually verify this. If I go to my admin panel, my server needs to be running. So let's do Python run server. Okay, so refresh here. I need to create a super user, so let me quickly do that. New terminal, or kill my terminal, I guess. And create a super user, use the create super user, all one word. This would be admin short. All right, and then let's run my server again because I think I just killed it. Run server. Okay, now can I get to my panel? And then, okay, there we are. We have students. All right, we have no students in our database, so let's create a student quickly. All right, so notice that we can enter a name. So I think, hopefully I can spell this right the second time. Isaiah Bragg. Isaiah, do you have a favorite color that you could just list off the top of your head?
Blue.
Blue. All right, we'll pick a nice blue. Kind of guide me towards what kind of blue you want. Do you want a light blue, dark blue?
Darker.
Darker.
There's
right.
great.
All right, thanks. All right, so again, this is the third-party library that we're using. This is a color field. So it's, again, quite useful. And then let's find an icon for Isaiah. So any things you're fond of, whether it be like a TV show or some.
I would say a running guy or something.
Okay, I like that. So let me quickly find a running shoe image. Okay, we'll just pick a random shoe. This one looks nice and colorful. So I'm gonna copy this image, Control, copy image location. Again, this is the image field that we're using. So notice that we could actually choose a file. I guess it's gonna be from our desktop, so I'm going to save this image. Control, save image as. Okay, so that's saved. Now let's actually upload it. So again, this is just an interface that's quite, so this is why you want to use image field, because it makes it much easier to deal with images. You don't have to, you could kind of pass a file path and manage it yourself. In this case, I chose a file. So that's gonna be shoe.jpg and then location. Isaiah, can you tell me either your hometown or your current location?
Niceville.
What is it?
Niceville.
Niceville?
Yeah.
In Florida?
Yeah.
What state is that in?
Florida.
Florida. All right, so I'm gonna save that. Not actually save the page. Save, hopefully no errors. All right, great. We have Isaiah enter into our database. We have various fields here. So I updated my model, but I actually want to present this on my actual web page, not just in my admin panel. So my student page, if I go here and refresh it, I have Isaiah. I haven't really implemented any details because I only had name as my initial model. So let's actually add these details in. And this is where we're going to work with images and then the Google API also. So yeah, let's get to that portion. All right, so let's look at my model. Again, we have these 4 items. I did have a model form created. So instead of just having name, I'm going to add in, I think I have his favorite color. And then what else was it? Location. And image, I think is what I just called it. All right, so now those fields are there. Hopefully this edit window will show that. Okay, I think I need to work on my edit, so apologies for not having that prepared. How we can kind of do this together. So I have my student edit. I need to go to my templates and student edit. Again, if I'm going too quickly, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to stop me. All right, so I need to make this a form. So this will be method of post. As always, don't forget your CSRF token. I forget it probably half the time and get that error, CSRF token. And then this will just be form as table. And since I'm doing that, I think I need to nest that inside of the table actually. And again, your form needs a submit button, so you gotta supply that. So the button type will submit, and this is the update. All right, so I don't actually have a creation form, so I'm just using an edit form. So that's why I'm gonna use update. All right, hopefully this is all I need. Let's find out. Refresh. All right, something is coded incorrectly. So this should be student detail, student edit is what I want. Try that again. All right, there we go. So this is our edit form. Again, we have name, we have color, which is going to be hex in a hex value. So this isn't actually using that color, nice color picker here. That might require a little bit more work, but I'm just going to deal with that. I probably won't deal with that at this point. We have his location, and then we could actually update our file here. So this is the image field actually gives access to this, I guess, interface, as opposed to the color picker. We don't have the actual widget, but for our image file or for our image field, we have this automatically done for us. Again, I didn't code this up like choose file. This choose file button was automatically inserted through our model form, so I could still update this. Like if I wanted to change it to a donut, I can, but we'll keep it a shoe. So do that. And then there's a few more steps that we need to go through. So this is what I'm going to walk through, hopefully not too quickly. But we have this image saved in our, where it's saved? Let's see. So images. Notice this folder was not here before. So maybe I should have highlighted that before. This images folder got created because I am saving this image and the place I'm saving it, let's walk back to my model, November models. Okay, so I kind of glazed over this before. I'm looking at my image field. So my upload to location is the folder that I want to store all my images. So in this case, I named it images. I could have named this whatever I wanted to. But in this case, it created this images folder for me because that's where I want to store my images. And it inserted the shoe.jpg into that folder. Again, this is not something I did manually. This was something Django did for me because I merely updated or uploaded an image file through my web interface from a different location, and that got dropped into my project. So now this is accessible within my project. All right, so I'm just going.
So now that shoe is in your database?
It is not in my database.
Okay. Where is that being stored?
So the URL, if we actually investigate our database, so this is where the difference between storing the actual file in our database versus storing a link or a URL to our image. So if I go to a new terminal, and I killed my terminal, I'm not sure why I'm kill prone today. Let me bring that back up. Python edge UI run server. Then I want a new window. Okay, so I'm going to dive into my database. So my database was just simply named xdb. DB. Looks like my definitions. So again, these are all the default tables. Auth underscore, that's not stuff I've created. But I do have a November's table, so November student. So I'm going to do select star from November student, semicolon. Okay, so notice that the image is simply a file path. It is not the actual file, as in it's not the bits or the data for the file. It is just telling me where I can find that file. In this case, it's saying it's images/shoe.jpg, and our Django project has an images folder with that file in there. All right, so again, there is a. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had a question. So in production environments for big companies that store a lot of photos, like Instagram or something, they would store all their files on a server or through something like an S3 bucket?
Yeah, I'm not, I guess I don't have full knowledge to speak about that in detail, so someone else has more knowledge about it, but from my understanding, they'll have those files that, on the server, and they would just store the links in their, I guess, main database, but those images need to be stored somewhere. Obviously, there's probably some disk that has all images that they can access. But yeah, they're not storing it directly in the database for their main databases. I'm pretty sure most companies are going to be linking to some external server for images.
Yep, it'd be stored in an S3 bucket, or if they have like Facebook, they've probably got their own server farm, etc.
Okay. Again, just to reiterate, there is a way to actually store the image inside your database, and I can go through that. It is a little more obtuse, so I don't want to waste too much time on that unless we have time to get to it. But in this case, image field is the main way you're going to want to store images. All right, so in this case, images /shoe.jpg. There was a change I need to make, so let me highlight that. I'm going to find it in my notes. Where is it? There it is. All right. So I'm going to go to my settings file because there are a few items I want to add here. These are maybe not required, but kind of the Django way to do it. So static URL is something that's going to be already in your default settings file. So that's not something I added. I don't know if you guys have used the static files underscore dirs or directories. This is another Django setting. So again, reading documentation. If I go to Django static URL settings. All right, so again, I think I showed this page on Wednesday perhaps, but let's go down to static. Yep, so static URL. All right, so notice there's a few settings you can set here. There's media URL. There's also, where's it, static URL. Also, there's the static files directory. This can give you additional, I guess, places where you can store static data. So I use this quite often. If you can see my project explorer here, hopefully it's not too small. I have a static folder which houses my CSS. So the reason I do it this way is so that my CSS can be accessible from any of my, I guess, apps or projects. So this static folder is this static value I put here, and then the CSS is just another folder nested within there. So basically this variable tells Django where additionally to look for static files. The static URL is a normal place it's going to look for it. So normally in your app, you'll have a folder called static, and you will have your probably a static and then your project name, static and your app name, and then have your files in there. But I prefer to do it this way, where I just have one static folder that sits kind of on the top level and put all my, I guess, static items in there. All right, so that's static files directory. I'm going to add another item here, and this is going to be media URL, and I'm going to set that to, let's just call it XX for now. We'll see where this is used. I just want to use different names, and then I'm going to also add media roots. Really is what I want. And just to verify that, let's find media roots. Yep, there we are, file uploads. All right, media root, the default is empty string. That is the reason why my images folder got dumped on the top level. But I actually want to organize that a little better, so I'm going to insert that into a media folder. I think that should do. Give me the slash here. All right, so I create these values. Again, these are, I guess, optional, but usually better to specify those if you can. So let me try to redo this, push my servers down. Media root not defined. Not sure why that's the case. Save this. Okay, I'm not sure what Django was talking about, but my server's back up. Let me refresh this page. Let's choose that image again. So again, I changed the media root, so I'm going to upload this file, open, and then update the user, and redirect. Sorry for these errors. I didn't have much time to code this up. Let's go to my views, but always good to debug. So in this case, my redirect is not specified, so I think I just need to include that here, I think. Sure. Just detail not found. All right, so let's go to my templates, student edits, and this looks good. So I think my views is the issue. So I'm redirecting right here. So I do November detail. Okay, so let's go to edit. Let's try that again. Choose file, shoe.jpg, update. Okay, cool. I have not actually shown the details here, but I think that edit updated. And to verify that, let's go back to my project explorer. So close these folders. Images. All right, that is not what I want. So, all right. SQL. That again. Okay, so for some reason my media root did not take effect, and I'm wondering why here. Oh well, we'll proceed. So let me update my student detail page just so we could actually show the values we set.
Don't you need to change it in your model because you still have it upload to images?
So my understanding, and you might that's a good point there. So this should use your media root as the base, and then append into an images folder within that file. So that was the whole purpose of the media root. You shouldn't have to put media here, is I think the suggestion. So basically the media root that I added to settings.py, this is what it should be using as the base. Kind of similar how the static directory is used. That's all right, we can proceed. So I want to edit my student details. And I definitely want to get to Google Maps, so let's make sure we finish by, I guess, 11:20, 25-ish. All right, so go to my templates, student detail, and let's add these fields in here. So I have details here. Let's do favorite color. And let's actually show maybe a color. Okay, so I'm going to use CSS for this. So I do have my CSS file that exists. Probably don't need to do any CSS. Ignore that. Student detail. Style, background color, and then this is where we'll insert our actual favorite color. So this will be student.favorite color. Keep in mind that this is a hexadecimal value, so we could just use that color straight up. Favorite color. All right. Dive back into CSS. If you guys remember your CSS, and you can give this a height of 100 pixels and a width of 100 pixels. Not sure if this will work. We'll try it. Okay, so let's do detail. We have a favorite color box that hopefully will just show the favorite color. And then what do we have? We had image. So this is where we want to show the image. So I'm going to go use an image tag. And then we obviously have a source, and then equals. All right, so this is where we want to use the image for the student. So we had student.image, and then it's going to be in the string. Quotes always bother me. Okay, so source will be, what will source be? Oh, okay. So since we have the URL, okay, so this is coming from documentation, but this image is an image field. It is not an actual image, but there's a URL parameter on the image field, which will point to where that image is actually located. So in this case, image is image field, .url is an attribute on that field. So this should give me the proper location of my image. So let's actually try this out and see what happens. And then we also have location. HR, just have some divisions here, and then we had a location. So location was student.location, I believe. Just verify that these are what I actually had. Location, image, favorite color. Student detail, name, favorite color. What's the issue here? All right, I'm not sure what the issue is here, but we'll have to figure that out. Okay, let's give this a try. I think there's an error here, so I'll figure that out once Django tells me what's wrong. All right, there we go. So we got this nice color box. This is Isaiah's favorite color. This image did not work, so we'll fix that. And this location is here. So we're going to use a Google Maps API for this shortly. Let's quickly fix this image because I want that to work. Student.image.url. That should work. Why isn't it working? So let's try updating the student, choose file. Let me just switch over to donuts, see if this makes a difference. Update. All right, so we're not updating this value correctly, so that's I think that's where my issue is coming from. Let's look at my views. Where's my views? Too many files open. Views. All right, so here we go. Taking the student form and then saving it. Is that actually what I want to do? Yeah, that looks correct. Not sure what's going wrong here. Let's try going through the admin panel. I think that's how we worked first time. So we have students, Isaiah, choose file, open, and save. Okay, so it looks like it's trying to use our media, but read-only file system media. All right, I have no idea why this is happening. I got it to work earlier. Okay, there's one more thing that I need to add, and this is again from reading documentation. So bear with me. I need to go to my URLs in my project. Okay, so I won't be able to explain why this is the case, but if you're in, like if we're testing it, you need to add something to your URL patterns. So that's what I'm gonna add here. Just gotta find it. Settings. All right, so let's copy this. All right, so I'm gonna include these two items. Again, this is from documentation, so kind of just take my word for it. I need something called settings and something called static. And then I'm gonna add this line in here. All right, so this is, we're in debug mode. URL patterns, I'm gonna add my media URL, which is something I added to my settings, and my media root. All right, so I think that's the reason why I was getting this error. So let's try saving this. See if my server is happy. Sure. Refresh here. Sure. Go back. Choose file. Shoot. Open. Oh, well, this is unfortunate. All right, let's proceed. Let's get to our Google Maps API. So again, I apologize, that was working for me before. I must have missed a step somewhere, if I can quickly find it. We did our media base. Let me try one thing, sorry. Let's go back to my settings. I think I had the wrong value here. So instead of media root, I want base stir plus media. I think that was what I was missing potentially. This work, shoot, open, save. Nope, nope. All right. Choose file, try donut, open, save. Okay, that worked. So we'll be using donut. So I go back to my folder here. All right, so now my media folder got created. So again, I think the issue was I had the wrong media root. I need my base directory and then /media. I think I was trying to store it at some other level that Django did not have access to. So I apologize there. So again, my media root is my base directory, much like my static files, and then a media appended to it. So this actually created this donut.jpg because that's the file I just saved. Let me get rid of this images folder because I don't want it. All right, and then let's change this to shoe, open, save. And let's see if Isaiah's page actually shows it now. There we go, we got this shoe in here. So again, I know I kind of jumbled the steps there. Let me just quickly review, and then I want to get to the Google Maps API. All right, so just to go through the steps of adding an image, the order I'll tell you is, first, you want to go to your project settings. At the very bottom, I guess this doesn't have to be at the bottom, add these two values. You want to add media URL and then media root. This is optional. The default is blank, so you could leave this off if you wanted to. But you want to add a media root, so a location for where your images should go. And then I guess if you don't have these two values, it'll default to the base directory. So I guess this technically could be optional. Second, you want to go to your project URLs and add this section that I just added. So for the most part, you could just copy and paste this. You need to include something called settings from Django config, and then something called static from config URLs static. Then have this if statement and append to URL pattern. So that's something we define on line 4. We want to append this line. Again, I'm not going to be able to tell you what exactly the static call is doing, but this is what's required to kind of get access to that folder. All right, so that's step 2 is update your project URLs. Then in your models, so let's go to my models quickly. Models right here, you want to use image field. So again, just to reiterate, to use image field, you're going to need to install Pillow. So you do pip install Pillow in your terminal, and then you'll be able to use this image field, which is quite handy. As you saw, it gives you a nice interface on your admin panel or in even your model forms to upload an image and kind of takes care of a lot of the work for you. Finally, in your templates, so let me go to my template for student detail. you simply want to reference the .url on the image field, and you can display that image like so. So again, I guess that's kind of 4 steps. Update your settings file, update your settings for your project URLs, update your model to have an image field, and then finally you could use the image field URL to display your image. All right, so we got this nice shoe here, but I want to get a nice location or a nice visual location for Niceville, Florida. All right, so let's go through the steps of using the Google Maps API. So let's actually search web because documentation is great. Let's go to Google Map API. Let's just search for that. All right, first result probably should be the one we need. Get started. Okay, so I'm logged into my Google account. It probably will prompt you if you're not. I'm gonna hit click get started. It's gonna take me to some pages. All right, so here we have quick start. Let's see what quick start does for me. Get started. All right, it's doing something. I don't want to create a billing account. Hopefully I get away with it. All right, maybe it's going to force me to Google Cloud Dashboard. Okay, so here I want to create a new project. So new project. All right, so I'm going to name this, let's just name it November students. Okay, so I'm creating a project. I don't really care about these values. So I'm going to create a project. All right, let's do this more. All right, I'm going to search product and resources. I'm going to type embed maps API. So notice I got a search result for maps embed API. I'm going to go there. All right, so I've already enabled this. If you've not enabled this before, you're going to see a button here that says enable. I've enabled it already, so I have API enabled. If you've not done this before, again, you're going to have to manually search for this and then hit enable here. Otherwise, it's not going to work like you expect it to. All right, so maps embed API is what I plan on using. I've enabled it. Now I'm going to go back to my projects. And let's see if I get to my APIs dashboard. All right, so in my API and services, I'm going to go to credentials. And then let's create a new key. So I'm actually going to trash the key I had here. Delete. Sure. All right, so let's create a new API key. So I'm going to do create credentials over here, and then I'm going to select API key. All right, so I'm going to click that. Now it gives me a key. If you read the documentation for Google API keys, they highly recommend that you restrict it. So I'm going to click restrict key. Again, I don't think you necessarily have to, but I'm just going to go through it since that's what they recommend. So I'm going to click restrict key. It's going to bring up this config page. You can restrict, I guess, the IP addresses or websites that use this key. But in this case, I'm just going to go to restrict key and select Google, the Maps Embed API. Again, this is optional, but just something Google recommends to kind of have some security on the key so it's not used arbitrarily. So I'm going to click save. All right, so now I have this key. So this key is going to come into play shortly. Let's actually go back to our documentation and read how we could actually use the Google API, Google Maps API. Google Maps API examples. What I expect. Documentation. All right, so documentation, maps, embed API. So again, there's several different flavors of it. I guess if you're using it for Android or iOS, you could have a developer kit. You could use URLs. Again, I'm not really used all of these. There's a JavaScript API if you're using maps data through your JavaScript code. But in this case, I just want to embed it into my web page. So I'm going to go to maps embed API.
And some of them require a credit card to use.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that's why it was kind of prompting me for billing information. but the Embed API is free. So if you're getting charged, you're doing something wrong. This is free to use for anybody out there. So again, pretty good documentation here. If I want to use it, I'm just going to copy kind of what they have here. So we're going to, an iframe is essentially a web page within another web page. So it's like picture in picture sort of for your web page. So I'm just going to copy this code and apply it to my student detail web page. So student detail, we have a location here, but I actually want to show it in like a nice map format. So I'm going to adjust my width. Let's make this a small window, 400 by 300, order. I'm sure these are just like selling things, so I'm going to ignore those. But in this case, I want to show my user's location. So if I go back to documentation, again, this is a good read, so I'm not going to go through it all here, but they kind of show you how to use it. So I think quick start is where I want to go. Yeah, quick start. So no, it's not the page I expected, but there's a few, sorry, let me figure this out. There's a page that shows you kind of options you can use here. Go to embedding in there. Yes, this is the page I wanted. All right, so notice there's a few parameters in the URL. There's map mode. There's your API key. This is the key that we just set up earlier. You're gonna have to use that to make that request, and additional parameters on how you wanna search your Google Maps. So let's actually look at some map modes. So you could use various map modes. You could use place. You can use a view, direction, street view. Again, these are common modes that we probably use through Google Maps. Like you're trying to find how to get from place A to B, you probably use directions. In this case, I just want to use place. All right, so I'm going to go down to place mode. It shows the following URL uses place map mode to display a map marker at the Eiffel Tower. So this is the example here. I'm going to copy this. So again, the Q is just a query of Eiffel Tower. I'm going to need my key, so let's replace it here. I think that's what we had before. Definitely want that to be in strings. All right, so their default one was Paris, France, Eiffel Tower. But in this case, I'm going to put in the value for the student. So if you remember, we had a field called student.location. Okay, so this is going to be our query, and hopefully you can pick up Niceville, Florida. That was a string we put in, right? But the key thing here is we have an API key that we need to provide. This is a value that I need to provide. So let's go back to my dashboard that I had up somewhere here. All right, here, my key exists here. I'm just going to copy it. So copy API key. It's a weird long-looking string. Just going to copy it and drop it in here. One thing to note is that this is a public key, as in this isn't that risky, as in I'm recording this lecture and you guys are going to be able to see this and maybe use it if you want to. But I mean, this is a public key. There's not any harm to exposing this. When you're dealing with private keys, as in keys that you might have an API service where you get charged for each request that you make, you're not going to want to make that visible in your source code. So this is an HTML file. This can be visible to my end user. If it's a private key, you're going to need additional protections for the key. You don't want to hard code it or expose it outside of your project. This also goes for uploading to GitHub. You don't want to upload private keys to GitHub. All right, so let me save this and see if this actually works. So saved it. That's not my web page. All right, refresh. Okay, so this refused to connect, which is not what I wanted, but we could try to fix that. Place key. All right, before I have that, let's see if our default Eiffel Tower works. Save. Refresh. Oh. What's going wrong here? All right, so we have about 5 more minutes. I definitely want to figure this out. So
this is the situation where you need to actually enable your API key. This was in Tom's video from last cohort that you have to find a way to enable it.
Yeah, so I think I did those already. I thought I would save this, but this is optional. Save. Yeah, so enabling it, you just want to search in your projects and search for maps embed API. And in this case, I had already enabled it before, so this was the screen to enable it. I'm not sure if there's another additional step required, but I was able to get this to work last night.
Does that have to be an F string in your source? Right
here?
Attribute?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to use their example, which is Eiffel Tower. I don't think it needs to be an F string because we're in an HTML file, so F strings won't really work the way we want it to. Refresh. Do something.
Have you just like killed the server and ran it again?
I could try that. Let's see. All right, bye-bye server. Clear. And what do we want to do? Python manage.py and runs server. All right, so there's something I'm missing here. Let's see if we can figure out in the next 3 minutes. But all right, so we, again, just to review, we have the segmentation. This is all we should need. All right, my keys.
Does it matter, like the order that you put the place and the key? Like if the key's last or if the key comes first?
That shouldn't matter. So after the question mark, you could basically have your parameters in the order. So these are kind of like quarbs. So key is going to be here, and then
because you have place question mark key.
Right.
I don't know. Mine's the opposite order. So
Gotcha.
after place, I put the place.
So you had Q first and then key after.
Right.
All right. Try that. Generally speaking, it shouldn't matter because these are just named parameters. So anything again after the question mark, this is going to assign this value to the Q parameter, and then my key will be assigned to this. All right. That was unexpected.
I don't remember. Do you put your API key in your settings or not?
I did not put it in settings. That is recommended in terms of protecting your API key. But in this case, I've just hard coded it into my URL.
Okay.
Just try to get it working. Copy this.
Is the network tab on the browser saying anything? I don't know if maybe it's like I don't think it'd be a CORS error, but
Same origin. Interesting.
Go to the network tab and see if it made the request.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be what I expect it to be.
Yeah, it's getting a 404 error back.
Gotcha. I wonder if I don't know, does anyone know? Because I had a previous key and then I got a new one. Do they kind of limit you to how many keys you can have?
No, you can have as many.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna wrap this up. Apologies for not actually getting this to work, but I'll try to figure it out and update you guys and to see what was missing here. But essentially, again, you just need to go to Google API, register, create a project, and then make sure you enable embedding that maps embed API. So that's a common step to forget, I guess. But yeah, otherwise it's pretty straightforward. I know I didn't make it seem that way, but other than that, once you get your key, you can kind of just go to your documentation, and kind of copy the iframe code that they gave you, and it should ideally, knock on wood, work. Again, I was unable to do that. Let me try one more time with a different code. Right, so
you missed an A at the start of your API key.
Good eyes, good eyes. Okay, save that. Refresh one more time. I don't think it's gonna work. Exist. Okay. All right. Anyway, I wonder. Okay, I'm gonna try one more time. I think it might have been like quotes potentially, maybe. Maybe not. Save that. Iframe. Quotes. All right. What am I doing here? Source. All right. I don't think this will work. Refresh. Okay. I'll figure it out and update you guys later. Otherwise, let's take a quick 5-minute break. Oh, there we go. I have no idea what I did differently. All right, let's try to get, since I got this working, I'm going to try one more time. Sorry for kind of rushing this. Let's add in the actual location for where Isaiah is. So we had student.location.
Is it going to work because it wants pluses instead of spaces?
That might be it. That's a good point. Sorry. So let's actually, you're right about that.
Work with spaces.
It should automatically parse it.
Oh, wow, that worked. Yeah, that's a good point. So usually you want to make sure your URLs are correct, but in this case, we got to Niceville, Florida, which I actually don't know where it is in the state. So let's zoom out. It is apparently in the Panhandle. Isaiah, can you quickly tell us about Niceville in like maybe 30 seconds, just to give us a good intro?
It's a really nice place to be. It's definitely a small town. You could also consider it southern Alabama more than Florida in a lot of cases.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, thanks a lot for providing this information. So I've learned that Isaiah's favorite color is a nice dark blue. Isaiah is really into running, and he lives in Niceville, Florida. So good to learn about our students that way. Hopefully you guys got some benefit out of this. Again, just using some new fields. We use a color field, which lets us have a nice, I guess, interface when we're using the admin panel. Again, we have this nice color picker that we use to the admin panel. Again, there might be a few more steps that you might need to do to actually get it to work on your edit page. So if I go to my edit, again, just to highlight, this is just a string field. So I'm sure there's an HTML widget that you can kind of insert here for a color picker. So I guess that could be a self-project if you're interested in that. Again, the image field was a nice Django utility where I just use image field. Now I have this interface for uploading a file. I can switch to donut, open, update. Let's see if that actually works. And that did work because it's refreshing. Maybe. All right. So there's a bug in my code still, but otherwise it is still possible to display images. Kind of bummed that doesn't update.
I'll take a quick break.
Okay. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break, and then at 11:35, John's going to be giving a Beyond Tech presentation. So let me stop the recording here.